Greetings and welcome to another episode of Going All In, Get the Edge You Need to Succeed. I'm Dr. Erin McKinley, and today we have another awesome spotlight session with Karen Harouse-Bell from the Seton Hill University Integrative Masters in Nutrition and Dietetics program based in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Check it out. All right, Karen, welcome to the podcast. To get us started for this episode, I would love for you to give us an introduction to you, your journey to RD, and how you landed in your position with Seton Hill.
Sure. Thank you so much, Erin. I really appreciate being on this episode. We have so much to share here at Seton Hill, but to give you some information about how I started in my journey, it really started back when I was really a young child. I remember my mother or great aunts, grandparents, my grandmother would be making or baking things in the oven. And I remember I was always very intrigued. And I loved when one of the ovens, whoever I was observing, had the lights. So I could see what's happening. And things like that fascinated me. I liked to look at a cookie to see how it baked and spread and rose. And so it's really odd that at that young age, I found such interest in those types of things. And I think that's what really sparked my interest. In my family, we have a lot of people in the healthcare profession, and I was also a competitive swimmer, and I'm very active and still swim. And I was very interested in what I ate and how that relates to athletic performance. And then as I continued through school, I had several family members that developed type 1 diabetes, and I became very impassioned with type 1 diabetes. And that really stoked my fires a little more. And here I am today. So thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you jump into telling us all about your program.
Sure. Thank you so much. So Seton Hill University is a smaller school, and here's a beautiful picture of it in the fall, but we're in the foothills of the Alleghenies, about 45 minutes east of Pittsburgh, and our campus really is on a hill. We are on top of the hill, and here's a beautiful drive up the hill. It's pretty majestic in the winter, fall, spring. It's a lovely ride up the hill. But we have about 200 wooded acres, and it used to be a farmland. And most of our academic buildings and residence halls, the majority of things are on the hill. We have some buildings that moved into the town, like the performing arts, but most of us are pretty much still on the hill. We are nationally recognized Catholic liberal arts university, and I always like to say we are a charming mix of the modern and the historic. As far as our journey here with the dietetic and nutrition program, we were a coordinated program for years. And when I first came on as the program director, one of my big tasks was to apply for candidacy for accreditation as a future education model program. And we received that accreditation in June of 2020. We started our first class in August of 2020, and we are continuing those enrollments, of course. At Seton Hill, we have a pretty unique situation because we planned a curriculum so that our students will earn their BS in 3.5 years. After that 3.5-year period is when the graduate program starts. And we have that as a 1.5 years during the most of the graduate, but also some of the undergraduate courses. We have approximately 1,200 hours of experiential learning built in all through our curriculum, mainly starting in the junior year. So that would be year 3. As we all know, after we gain the master's and the experiential learning hours, then we do the verification statements for the registration process. And then we encourage our students to sit for the registration exam. To give you an idea of what our curriculum looks like, we do put a lot of the liberal arts requirements in the first year or two, and also some of the prerequisites for many of the courses that we would need in an advanced level. So this gives you an idea of what some of the courses would be. And then year 2, we have a little more. You do see some food science labs, experimental foods labs, and that includes some experiential learning hours. We just included a new course. Well, we revised a course, Advancements in Food Science and Culinary Medicine. And I'm thrilled. I'd like to take that class myself. Year 3, and this is still undergrad, you'll see those asterisks, and that's really designating some of the experiential learning courses. We have a wonderful relationships with many school districts and long-term cares and acute care settings in our radius here. And we offer that experiential learning as part of the food service management's classes. And we also do health promotion and wellness. And in this course in the spring of year 3, we take our students through health promotion and education from preschool to the elderly. We incorporate individuals that are mentally challenged, also different ethnic backgrounds, as far as social backgrounds also. Year 4 in the fall is when our students finish up their bachelor's part of the program, provided that they have kept up with everything. You'll see a lot of those asterisks where we include some of the experiential learnings. Sports and performance nutrition is a new course we added with our future graduate model, and we're thrilled to have that on. We have a basic sports nutrition, but sports and performance nutrition is really more concentrated for someone with the skill set that we prep our students to have. The colored, peachy color you'll see highlighted in year 4 in the spring is really when our graduate program starts. Our graduate program is entirely online. As far as the asterisks, once again, those are experiential learnings. We are currently setting up nutrition counseling. We're in the process of it with our wellness center, so we can do some virtual education to students that need it. And nutrition and media communications is also a new course, which I'm really thrilled about because I'm learning so much from the subject matter expert putting it together. We're also looking at classes that in the curriculum that are from some of the other disciplines, like the education department, because 21st century learning is just so key to success in the future as an educator, whether it's counseling or group sessions or individual sessions. So we have many enhanced features to the graduate courses. So we step it up a notch per se. Year 5 in the fall, more courses that are appropriate for the graduate level. I am more excited, I think, about the pharmacology for the healthcare professional. As an undergraduate years ago, this is one of the areas that I really had no knowledge about. And it's a very difficult area to navigate. So this course I felt was so appropriate for our students. And this course is in our program, but it's open to any other student in healthcare field, healthcare professionals that want to take it. And then spring of year 5 is when we do probably the bulk of the experiential learnings, where we have students in acute care centers, in other courses, but in the spring graduate program, year 5, this is where they're pretty much doing things on their own. Things should be coming together by now. They're doing a lot of, work relief, staff relief for the places that our students are placed at. And I'm excited about the nutrition and aging, where we looked at that, looking at long-term care centers or any place else that we feel would be appropriate for our students to gain the knowledge they need, especially with the aging population in our country. We have applied nutrition research courses. We feel that research is a critical part of advancing our career. So we've incorporated that not only into the undergraduate portion, but also the graduate portion. So our students should be prepared to not only conduct a small research project, but also be prepared to present it and also maybe submit it for publication. So I'm really proud of those research courses. Now, people may ask, how do we get out in 5 years? Well, we would encourage students to take some summer classes. And I just had a counseling or an advising session, earlier. And the students, no, I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to take a little overload. So it's really up to the student what they feel they need, but we don't encourage putting too much in as far as more than they can handle. So these are an option if they want to you take these over the summer or incorporate them into one of their semesters. These are some examples of experiential learnings that we offer at Seton Hill. You'll see the food science and experimental foods labs. We do a lot of fun things in there where our professor would give a student a recipe, and it might be, I don't know, banana cake or something, banana bread. And that student would have to make that maybe a low salt or high fiber. And she gives the students parameters. And it's really interesting to look at how they're analyzing it and figuring out what these ingredients do and how this product can be made better by manipulating or changing some of the ingredients that go into it, considering everything they learned in food science. So the product is hopefully very tasty in the end. We have the media communication, sports nutrition, nutrition counseling. So these are some of the things that I'm really proud of. We have a wide variety of experiential learnings that we offer to our students here at Seton Hill. Most of you may know that the Ascend has moved to competency-based education, where students, when they acquire the knowledge and the skills they need, once we say they're competent, they can move on to something else. Or if they're not competent in that skill, then we can focus more time and effort with them on perfecting that skill, which I think is a great part of the future graduate programs, the future education models that Ascend has put forward. And I know there's other professions that do this. So it's nice to see that our profession is on competency-based education. Here's some pictures of experiential learnings that we do. I mentioned some of the teachings we do, and on the left side of the PowerPoint, you'll see some students working with preschoolers. And that lesson had to be developed with an appropriate lesson plan. And we had one student that managed that project at the daycare center. And as we go through all of the stages of life, that is true for all of those other endeavors. We have our students, you'll see in the center there. I think it's important that everybody understands what blood pressure is, how to take it. Not only do we have them take it with the newer digital machines, but also manually so they can understand what they're listening for. Pulses, weights, waist, neck circumference. We're also very fortunate to have a Bod Pod. And on the right side of the slide, you'll see 4 of our students that are recent graduates who were performing, or actually posing for a picture. Clearly, that's not the proper attire to wear in a Bod Pod, but they were just posing for a picture. And this Bod Pod is something that we were on hold a little bit because of COVID and other reasons, but we'll be ramping that up this year. So our students have all been meeting the competencies in performing Bod Pod measures for our student body, athletes, faculty, and staff. The picture on the left, we do a project with the medical Spanish class, and this has to do with diversity. We have our students be the dietitian, and the medical Spanish professor, you'll see, she'll have her students be the interpreter. So I think it's a very valuable experience for our students to understand how to communicate someone if they're speaking to someone that English is their second language or they're not familiar with the English language at all. Also, deaf or other individuals that we may run into, we make sure our students have the ability to understand that process as far as the counseling needs. We have our students trained in the nutrition-focused physical exams. I work with the physician assistant program here at Seton Hill, and we're very fortunate that our students go through some training, and we also bring in individuals that may be a little up in age, that they also can look at the differences in different age groups, and maybe someone that's not as nourished as some of the college students may be. The photo on the right was another exciting thing. We took our students to Washington, D.C., and they learned so much about just the political side of our profession and how important it is to represent our profession, answer the action alerts. what policymakers. We had our students meet with our senator that represented our area. We had them meet with the wonderful individuals that run the Academy's site in Washington, D.C., as well as the USDA, the FDA, the NIH. So we really give them a nice picture of what goes on in Washington and some of the policies that occur that affect not only ourselves, but our population, our patient population as well. A couple more experiential learnings. The top left is a project we did with a local a group that actually works with diverse populations, and we were looking at some education for that population. The bottom left, here's in our sim lab that we use with the nursing program, and you can see our students are checking for vowel sounds. We're also on the right, I have a student see what it's like putting a feeding tube in. Not that we ever will need to do that, but I think that's a very important skill just for them to understand how these feeding tubes are put in. And then in the center, you'll see that some of our gang are students at the Eat Right Academy in Washington, D.C. And they are just amazing hosts, and we're so excited to have us. And we were thrilled that they had us as guests. Once again, competency-based education. So we tailor our education based on our students' performances, and everyone has different learning abilities. So the CBE-based education really assists us with guiding students. Once again, this Miller's model of competence as it relates to competency-based education, with our curriculum, we build it up. So in the first year courses, maybe some of the second year courses, this is when the NO's content is really enforced. And as they progress through our program, we go up the pyramid, or up the triangle, I should say. And at the end, our students really are at the does level. If any of you are familiar with the future education model, there are 37 competencies, and competencies would be outcomes. Competencies are defined by the performance indicators, which evaluate that competence. And there are 220 performance indicators. Let me give you an example of how we measure a competency, say, here at Seton Hill. Competency 1.1 applies an understanding of environmental molecular factors and food in the development and management of disease. The Academy has designated that as a show level, so we have to show that competency was met at that level. These are the performance indicators that are included in that competency. And we cover all of these performance indicators, but we only measure one of them. So you'll see in advanced nutrition, we look at competency 1.1. Our students are educated on all of the performance indicators, and we measure the performance indicator 1.11 by a final exam case study. And they're showing us they know how to do this. Most of the performance indicators, they're spread out through all of our courses at Seton Hill, so we don't jam them all into one course. So if you mapped it out, it's a really pretty map with different colors of what is done at different stages. So we spread it out so that we make sure that our students understand it. We do a lot of formative evaluations with our students also. And you can see that we can demonstrate competence in a variety of ways, depending on if it is a knows, shows, or does. Whether it is in exams, different projects, simulations, real world, laboratory experience. So Ascend does mandate that every competency is taught or covered, and each performance indicator has to be taught or covered. But we choose one performance indicator that we measure. We have a tremendous number of very talented preceptors that we work with. And with our program, we place students. So our students do not have to search for their own experiential learnings. That's not to say if a student is very passionate about a certain area, then we will try to contract with that agency or individuals so that our students can have experiences in there too. So even though we do find the experiential learning sites, our students are more than welcome to propose to us a site they would like to go to and why. And then we would work with securing that contract for that site. I mentioned earlier a little bit of benefits about competency-based education, but I really, like I said earlier, I think it's really a good thing for our profession, and I'm very happy to see it included in the future graduate program. One other aspect of the future education model is the enhanced competencies. And all of these competencies have to be covered and taught and measured, I should say, at the graduate level. And for instance, competency number 1.8 applies knowledge of pharmacology to recommend, prescribe, and administer medical nutrition therapy. You can see that 2.5 is prescribes, recommends, and administers nutrition-related pharmacotherapy. And that's at the does level. We have this incorporated into our pharmacology for the healthcare professional. So the exams would cover the nose level, the case study that shows, and then medication administration rubrics, we would have that done at the does level. And that right now is looking like a, sub-Q practice injections with saline, into an orange or a pad. And, we're in the process of working that out. So our students in that course can also tape themselves and we can see, if they're meeting competency in that. There are many other enhanced competencies. I have another listed here as far as the food systems management. And we're looking at safety and sanitation survey grades. We're looking at competency rubrics. And these also would be an enhanced competency at a graduate level. And these competencies really are focusing a lot on management, more managerial experiences in these types of courses. I talked a little bit about the competency-based education that we use. And just to review, we also have problem-based learnings, the lab simulations you saw, the role-playing we do, mock situations, professional portfolios, the digital portfolios we have our students do, a lot of journaling, reflection, various other ways that we are assessing their competence. So why do I think, what sets us apart? And I cannot give you all any statistics on our graduate program because we haven't had a class completed yet, because we're still young in the process. But I can tell you our coordinated program test results, that we are 16% higher than the national average on our latest coordinated program results. And our pass rate at Seton Hill is almost 95% compared to the national average, which was 88.37. And I believe this was the statistics I found from the fall numbers that I had. So we do quite well in our pass rate. We send out employee satisfaction surveys, alumni surveys, preceptors have surveys, and we really take their responses seriously. And we've changed and redirected some of our courses or our projects because of the feedback that we get from these individuals, which is very valuable. And we also, our faculty, and I can't speak enough about our faculty, the commitment, the dedication, just very impassioned faculty here at Seton Hill. I also wanted to show all of you some pictures that I just took before coming on here. This is a picture of our Bod Pod on the left, and on the right, we actually had an experimental foods class going on in here. So we had some students gathered around working on a project in the experimental foods. Our experimental food science lab is very large. We could fit about 22 students in there, and it's very well equipped. We also have a quantity foods lab that we have next to it, but I couldn't get in there. So we do amazing things here at Seton Hill. You can see some of the nutrition-focused physical exams, poster presentations, some of our graduates there. I think the bottom one is some of our graduates on Zoom when we had to go to Zoom. And so a lot of good people, exciting things. And just to give you some idea, some of the accolades that I'm very proud about here at Seton Hill is that we did have the coordinated program that started in 1977. So this really was on the forefront of some of the newer ideas in nutrition and dietetics education. Our pass rate has been above the national average consistently. Remember, though, this is on the coordinated program, as I mentioned, and we received our candidacy for accreditation for the future graduate program in June of 2019. And we were recognized as, an early adopter of the program. We also were recognized by Ascend for the innovative and noteworthy practices. And we also developed and launched we have a separate graduate program, a new one in advanced nutrition practice in 2021. If any of you would like to contact me, here's my email. I'd be more than happy to get back to you and have a nice conversation. So thank you all so much for letting me share with you some great things that are happening at Seton Hill University.
All right. Well, thank you for that very thorough program overview. And so usually I would go into my 5 questions that I ask all programs, but this one's set up a little bit different. So we're going to ask a little bit different questions this time, but those that I know students would love to know the answers to. And so one of the questions that's usually one of my favorite questions to ask programs is about the red flags aspect. And so we were chatting just before we started recording. What are some of the things that potential applicants may do in their communications with you prior to applying, to where it might raise some red flags where you're thinking maybe this person isn't the best fit for this type of program?
Right. Some emails that I receive are written so well and so nice, very professionally written, very warm type of an email, correct spelling, and those emails are very pleasant to read and very nice to read. I can tell that individual is very excited about the career and about possibly coming here to Seton Hill. But occasionally, not often, I do get emails that really are written very sloppily. They may start out by saying, "Hey, I'm interested in your program." So I think students should be aware that regardless of if you're applying to my program or if you're sending an email to anybody else, that we should be very cautious of proper etiquette when we are sending emails.
So you mentioned several aspects of the program that you feel really separate you from others. But if you had to pick the one major one that you really feel separates you from the competition, what would that be?
I think our program and our faculty here in our program has, I always say better bend than break. And that is the theory and the philosophy that we use here with our students, because everyone has different needs, whether it's economic or social or, you just don't know what's going on in a student's life. So we try to keep a very open dialect. And I really believe that it's that flexibility. Now, we have to not give them free rein, but, we have to learn that it's better bend than break when it comes to students sometimes.
All right. So what would be the 3 best adjectives, and these could be descriptors or phrases, that you really feel best describe the program overall?
I think our program is innovative. We are very, we encourage a lot of the entrepreneurship, private practice. We also include that in our program. Also research, which I think is really wonderful for advancing the program, as well as that strong effort and push to be active in the political actions networks and communications that we need to look at and examine and understand what's going on, because this affects not only our career, our future, our reimbursement, but also our patients. So I think it's just becoming more aware of what's happening in our profession and where we need to be as professionals, as well as the flexibility and adaptability.
So it's no secret that all programs went through a lot with COVID-19, but what would you say is one improvement to the program that really came out of all of the changes that we had to make because of COVID?
I'm going to go back to better bend than break. That was our mantra, the whole COVID, and that put a different spin on maybe some things that might have been a little too rigid, but it truly is better bend than break. I have students that, I can't do this, or can I do this on Zoom? This is happening. And, years back, we really could have said, no, you can't miss class. But, with the technological advances and the abilities for us to be a little more flexible, I think that really has helped a lot of our students, especially our students who are really a non-traditional path where they may be a post-bac and they have children at home. So I've learned a lot from my students, and I try to put myself remember when I had younger kids and how so much I appreciated my coworkers helping me, or, if I'm late a little bit. So like I said, it's that better bend than break.
All right. I just have a couple of more questions just to be clear for the viewers, since this program does appear to be a little different from some of the other programs that have been on the podcast. So the way that the program's designed, is your key demographic for applicants the high school students, trying to capture them when they come in as freshmen?
Well, we do take students at any stage of their education level. We have a lot of students that apply as a freshman, but I also have a lot of post-bac students that apply, or students that may change their major. And, when we have a post-bac, we work with them with our curriculum planning to make sure that, they are getting that education they need to meet their competencies, performance indicators, and receive the experiential learning, plus the knowledge they need. So our entry point is really at any point in there. And we also have a assessment of prior learning that we develop. So our students would complete one of those, and I would be able to discern if they need more work, more education, more practice, if this competency wasn't met. And I also look at any experiential hours that they might have from prior schooling, or even prior employment.
So it would be totally appropriate if an applicant from a DPD program from another university approached you to apply to go into the master's component. That would be acceptable. They don't necessarily have to come from Seton Hill.
No, you're absolutely right, Erin. Actually, I have 1 or 2 DPD students in our program right now.
Awesome. Well, that was all the questions that I had. So I would love to close out the episode with a quick take-home message to potential applicants.
Wow. Have fun, be yourself. It's a great career. I love it. I've been in this for so many years. Just remember that what you like, you think you like, you may not like. So be open to any new ideas and follow your passion.
Thank you so much, Karen, for being with us on the podcast today. And for those at home who would like some more information on the program at Seton Hill, I've included their website link in the description below this video. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode with another awesome dietetic internship. And we'll see you next time. Bye.